Hello and welcome to part 4 of my self-chill explosive trap trickster build guide for 321 Crucible Path of Exile. This is going to be focused around endgame gearing and upgrading from your transition over to self-chill into something that does comical amounts of damage. Now you can see here we're self-chilled, we're really fast, it feels very, very good to play. It's hard to describe the difference between a non-self-chill and a self-chill trapper. Sunblast is still providing us huge amounts of damage, and we're still using the same call to arms, Skin of the Lords. You'll see Uber Shaper just melts away, easy peasy. I've done a handful of upgrades here, I think around 7, and my best guess at what the budget here is going to be is around 50 or 60 Divine. Now you can pick and choose things that you want to upgrade in small increments. Each one of these upgrades is going to feel good. And some of them, like the Amulet, the one I'd recommend first is something like 30% more damage. So there's plenty of upgrades to be had, and it doesn't have to be a huge chunk all at once. And I'll do my best to provide you with some guidance in how to put together these items and not have to get them off trade. I think that other than the uniques like Impossible Escape and Forbidden Flame and Flesh, I can't help you there, but the gear I got you for. Okay, how did we get to this point? So this is maybe 50, 60-ish divines invested. Each of these upgrades, and there are like 7-ish of them that I'm going to talk about, are pretty significant DPS boosts or quality of life boosts. The one thing that the big thing we haven't done yet is transitioned over to a 6-link body armor setup. So when we get here, you'll be able to take an Enlighten and put it in here and have a 5-link aura setup, which is amazing, but it requires you crafting an explosive trap helmet. There's a video guide I have on how to do that, but that's not where we're at. This is 50 or 60 divines invested without doing a helmet craft. So the things that we have done here are a new amulet. These are maybe 6-ish divine to craft, and I'll teach you how to do that in another video. These sell on trade for like 20 or 30 div, which I think is crazy. I made a lot of profit selling them last league, but they're actually quite easy to roll, and I'll show you how. I have a proper trigger scepter now and an offhand proper scepter. Now these crafted suffixes are kind of garbage and actually are impacting me negatively in this demo. So you can imagine it being a little bit stronger if I have something like trap throwing speed or a crit multi rolled on here. But I needed the strength index and lightning res in order to cap those things on this build because it's a little scuffed because I'm sort of putting it together as a demo like the day before league starts. So yeah, these two scepters, an amulet. One thing I would prioritize getting, and the reason is you get to free up a suffix, a flask suffix, and automate it with use with chargeful, is an ignite corrupted Winterweave. Now, last league these were 2 or 3 divine. They weren't crazy expensive, but man, the quality of life cannot be overstated. To have it cannot be ignited corruption because ignite is just a terrible stat damaging ailment, and not having to think about it anymore is great. The next thing I did is swap into ambush and assassinate forbidden flame jewels. These jewels are so strong. So you get 15 more, and this is more, 15% more damage with hits against enemies that are on low life. So half the time you're going to be doing 15% more damage. On full life, you get an extra 40 crit multi and an extra 100% more crit strike chance. That's not increased, that is more. So that means if you are 50.01% crit, you are going to have a guaranteed crit strike on a full life enemy. Now, let me explain why that is really nice. So again, we are using a Alternating Sceptre, which grants us brittle instead of chilled when we inflict cold damage, but that first hit is critical to inflicting a max brittle. So we scale increased non-damaging element effect, but man, being able to guarantee that first crit is huge for inflicting a just fat brittle on a boss. And the last thing we get is Culling Strike. So it's just a flat 10% on top of whatever damage upgrade we get. I think this is near best in slot. There are some other ones. So Harness the Void is also good. I would say just tinker around. There are some good options. It doesn't have to be this. Opportunistic is You know, still a very strong bossing node, but it's sort of conditional damage. So yeah, Forbidden Flame and Flesh. The next thing is an Impossible Escape. So Impossible Escape is really, really nice because it grants us access to nodes that we wouldn't otherwise have access to. And in particular, there are two that are incredibly useful. This one is around Necromantic Aegis, and it gives us 10% reduced mana cost here and some mana regen, and 5% on this small node. The value of these cannot be overstated. Now, the other nice part about this particular wheel is that you get access to Foresight, which grants us extra ES, and extra ES recharge rate, and extra max ES. And then Ash, Frost, and Storm, which is, you know, if you weren't going to allocate Sovereignty or Anoint Sovereignty on your amulet, this might be one that you would consider. So 30% increased effect of ailments, 30% increased damage. Those are massive. The other choice, and this one is expensive generally because of the Mana Bond Hierophant build. It also uses this particular Impossible Escape. What I would do instead, so I think last league this was like 10 divine, but a Glancing Blows one might actually be better depending on where you're at life-wise, and is considerably cheaper. So I think I paid 1 divine for this one last league. And if we look at, let me see if I can find the wheel. Here we go. So this entire wheel provides us both max life and reduced cost of skills. Now you're going to have to allocate 1 more in order to get the same 15% value out of the other wheel, but you're also going to get like 20% life or 25% increased max life, which is pretty significant, especially on a build. Like while we're reasonably tanky, like quite tanky, we don't have a ton of life. So every little bit of life helps us, you know, stay alive in the event that we just take a fat fizz hit. Okay, what else? Better gloves and boots as necessary. So these are unnerve gloves. The fire exposure is going to be a bricked mod in 321 because one of the new masteries is inflict exposure when you suppress spell damage, and I would absolutely take that because it frees up the implicit to do something else. And this also has a temple mod. So the temple mod gloves aren't crazy expensive. You know, I would prefer a sorcerer base over this because I would like more ES than I have currently. But I can't socket discipline until I get to the next step, which is a six link aura setup. But this is fine. So the upgrade here is basically get the temple mod. I would recommend rolling some tier of Chaos Res. You don't need the spell suppress. That is ancillary to this. And there's an easy way to roll Chaos. I'll probably do another crafting guide for sort of the next tier of gear that I haven't yet done crafting guides yet for. But basically you're going to either split this, like you can see that I have split this on a full item. So if it had 3 prefixes and 3 suffixes, using a split beast is a safe way to sort of turn it into 2 items. And then hopefully you'll have the cold res and the increased damage with hits against chilled enemies on a base that doesn't have filled suffixes. And then you would just craft suffixes cannot change in the Reforged Chaos. Chaos is the only tag, Chaos Res is the only tagged mod in the pool. And you're guaranteed some tier of Chaos Res. Having Chaos Res is really great because it means you don't have to, you can start to remove some of these allocations for rot resistant and the Chaos Res cluster, which frees up you in ability to improve your passive tree with more damage. But yeah, anyway, I think I allocated like 2 or 3 div for doing something like this. And then making a better set of boots. These boots actually have no implicits on it because I just rolled them so that I could have the boot enchant, and it would help me cap my res. So again, in the demo video that I just showed you, I'm not as strong as I would expect to be in the endgame PoB. And then one last thing I've upgraded here is Lethal Pride. So this Lethal Pride grants me some fire res, which is really nice, And I think I have 2 double damage. So 10% double damage on this, and then 1% life regen. That's actually really nice. Another nice one is if you can get added fizz as fire. That's also a really strong node. In fact, one that's full of fizz as fire is incredibly strong and will be quite a bit cheaper than 10% double damage. I think lethal prides like this were going for 2 or 3 divine last league. I don't know what they're going to be next league. I'm just trying to give you sort of a rough idea budget wise of where we're at. So at this budget level, so 50 or 60 divines, I feel comfortable taking on uber bosses, deathless. I can speedrun shaper. Maven becomes uber Maven becomes very easy. I would probably consider start doing feared carries. Certainly you can do basically all content at this point.